Hi, welcome to Oh, the People You'll Meet. My name is Stephanie Richardson, and I am so glad that you've joined our podcast. I started this podcast because I meet people in the most random places, whether it's the airport, it's the grocery store, it's a coffee shop, kids sporting events, church, wherever, and I meet some of the coolest people. And as I meet them, I hear their stories, and their stories inspire me. They encourage me. And they just show that God is near. He's present. He loves us. And he just uses those stories to say, hey, Stephanie, you can do it. I'm here with you every step of the way. And so I wanted to share those stories with you. And so that's why I started this podcast. And so I'm so excited that you're here to join us. Today, we are going to talk to Miss Kylee Washington. And Kylee and I we'll share how we met through football. Yeah. Football moms, but more specifically through locker room prayer moms. Mm-hmm. And coming from being in a public school to coming to Liberty Christian and having that opportunity to pray in the locker room every Friday was just so powerful. Mm-hmm. And coming from kind of a scared point in my life, I think, because we kind of followed, like, just asked the Lord that we could move back, and he opened all the doors, but just having that guilt of, like, am I doing the right thing to my kid, moving him as a junior in high school, and one as a freshman, like, moving them back to Texas and away from their friends, and also just the fear of, like, Lord, am I in your will, and so there was a lot of stuff playing, and so coming to pray every Friday over the locker room where the boys, with football and stuff, I was, like, overwhelmed a lot, cried a lot.
I think we all did.
But the Holy Spirit just really met me there and comforted me, and then comforted me through, Jake getting hurt, sophomore year, and getting hurt junior year and senior year, I mean, those times, like, in that locker room were just so sweet, and those sweet relationships, and you just did such a great job of being obedient to that and creating such a sweet spirit in that room of worship and prayer, and just really putting aside, like, our mama bear instincts, because we want to fix all the things, and the disappointments that happen in football seasons, and with our kids, and wanting to fix those things, but just, like, bringing them to the Lord, and that was such a sweet time. It really was. So maybe they'll let us go borrow the locker room sometime, right? But it really smells.
It does.
It smells.
But you kind of forget, like, after 5 minutes.
But when you walk in,
it's just like,
it is.
We tried everything. Charcoal.
Yeah, and Febreze didn't even work. Like, nothing worked. It smelled so bad. Oh my gosh. It's really amazing that they didn't notice it,
right?
Or they cared.
Boys.
Yeah, they're just stinky.
They're just like that.
Okay, so let's start with your story a little bit. Tell me a little bit about where you grew up and kind of how you grew up.
Okay. I grew up in Nebraska. I don't know how much of my story you actually know.
Yeah, I know some, but
a small town. Its name is Kearney. It's about 30,000 people when the university is in session.
My friend, her kid goes there.
Oh, really?
Nebraska. Yeah, he plays soccer for them.
University of Nebraska at Kearney?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really? That's so funny.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a small town. The college is kind of the anchor there. And there's, college and the hospital because it's the middle of the state. It's kind of small, mostly white.
Yeah.
Very homogenous. It's a great little town to grow up in, though. But my parents, are still married to this day. My grandparents live there. They've been both of them, 65 years.
Wow.
Almost, I think, longer than that now. But I had 4 brothers, only girl, second in line. So I wasn't picked on. I was more the caretaker.
You kind of took over, especially
my oldest brother picked on me, but so I went to Catholic school. I had a class of 29, and my high school class was 29. I went to grade school in elementary school in public, and then about, I think, 6th grade, I moved over to Catholic school, and it was rough. Off and on. Girls weren't very good.
So it's like all girls school, or is it like a mix?
No, it was mixed. Yeah, it was just it's funny. It's the Catholic school that my dad's family went to. So my dad is one of 9. They all went there, and so, like,
that's what you do,
right?
Yeah.
So my maiden name was Methy, and everyone knew the Methy kids were going to come through, and so it was a good school. but there was a lot of challenges. Like having 29 kids in class limits your exposure to friends. And so,
because if you don't like these people, there's not other options to go to. And I kind of noticed that liberty too, like, because, you know, going to a smaller school, like, it's definitely limited. Like, if you have a bad group of kids, you're kind of in trouble. Right?
Yeah. Well, and if something happens, everybody knows about it.
Yeah.
You know, everyone has an opinion. So, I mean, it was not a bad place to grow, but it was also had its challenges. So I was picked on a lot by girls.
Yeah.
A lot of bullying.
Because you're
bullied
so
in the
pretty.
bathroom. I don't know about that. I was bullied in the bathroom like for 2 years by a set of girls that just met me every day. I went and they told me they were going to beat me up. And my dad finally encouraged me to stand up to myself. And so I did. And then they stopped. And there was a lot of things that happened. So it kind of just set me up to get into a relationship that wasn't good. And he ended up being abusive emotionally and then eventually physically. Not for very long, because I happened to meet my husband, my now husband, actually on the night I was going to go meet my boyfriend. We were off and on for like 2 years, my freshman, sophomore year in high school. He was from another country, and he was a foreign exchange student at our school. And so we had been off and on because he liked other girls. He was just, if I think back on it, I'm like, what was I thinking? Like,
isn't it weird how as girls, like, why would we allow that?
Yeah.
Isn't it weird?
Yeah.
When you look back and you're like, I wish I wouldn't have allowed that.
Yeah. And my mom was my best friend. My dad was super supportive. You had a great relationship
with your family.
I was surrounded by good men. I mean, a lot of good men in my life that, I loved Jesus. I spent time in my Bible every day. You know, it was like I was that girl. But still, I got kind of wound up into that
bad relationship.
Yeah. So, but my mom's a praying mom, and I think she probably prayed this instance to happen with my current husband. I was on my way to meet my boyfriend, like I said, and then I picked up my best friend at a friend's house, and she's like, I got to use my brother's car that night because he had like a Thunderbird. Do you remember Thunderbird?
Yes.
He had a Thunderbird, and it was like tinted windows, and he had put like a subwoofer in. It was a super cool car.
Yeah.
Well, he was at school in Lincoln, University of Nebraska at Lincoln, and he let me use his car for the night. So I was like, this is it, right? And so I picked her up. She's like, let's drag Maine. And so in small towns, I don't know, did you grow up in a small town?
No, I grew up in Houston, but
so in small towns, there's Main Street. And everyone who can't go to the bars, so if you're under that age, you will go cruise Maine. That's like a rite of passage.
That's like the thing. Okay.
Yeah. And it was like 6 blocks, right?
Yeah.
And then you turn around and you go back. So you're going like 2 miles an hour, and one car's going this way, the other one's going that way. You'll hit a stoplight because, they don't sync up.
Yeah.
And you'll see who's in the car next to you. And if they're cute, you like holler at them or whatever. I mean, that's how it works. I'm sure there's many marriages out of this situation, including my own. And so I was with a friend, and I really didn't want to go. I was really interested in getting to the boyfriend, but she insisted. And so we went down. We were about 2 blocks in, and she yelled across me to the car. There's a little red car right next to us. It had 2 guys in it. All I saw was one really big black guy. And it was a little red car. So it was kind of odd, it just didn't look right. And she was like, George. And my future husband, or my husband now, leaned up from the back, like he was laying down. He leaned up and looked. And she's like, come meet us at IGA. So once you connect on Main Street, you go to the local grocery store parking lot so you can talk.
Okay.
And so we go to the parking lot, and Big George goes around to my friend's side, and Little George, we called him, regular size George, because Big George was big. He was a big man. He came to my window, and he knocked on it, and I was like, I'm not really interested. I don't want to roll my window down.
Oh, you didn't even roll it down?
Mm-mm. And he knocked again. He's like, come on. He's like, come on, just talk to me. And I was like, I know how you all are, because I was dealing with, my boyfriend currently was black, and George was black. So I'm putting the two together like, well, I'm dealing with this guy, and he's black, and he's a player, and he's mean, and, we're off and on, and all of that, and you're black, so I think you guys are probably about the same.
Yeah.
So we're going to pass on this one. He insisted, married to him for 22 years now. He's still this way. He's very persistent in the best way possible. I rolled down my window, and I don't really remember what we talked about, but the store manager came out and kicked us out of the parking lot. So we went to a side street, and parked again, and then we switched cars. So Shane, my friend, went into Big George's car, and then the other George came to my car. And we were just talking. I think we talked for at least an hour or two. I don't even remember what we really talked about. And I was still kind of like, I mean, I thought he was cute. Don't get me wrong. He's very cute. But I said, well, if you're interested, you can call me tomorrow by noon and I'll talk to you. And we didn't have cell phones then, right?
No.
So the next day rolls around, and I go to a basketball game with my friend, and I get back, just in case he calls, I get back on time home, and he called at 11:59, which is how he is to this day.
Very prompt.
Yeah, he does what he says he's going to do. And so all that to say, we dated for about a year and a half, and lots of things happened in that time frame. My friends just weren't super nice to me at the time. My best friend, that we actually were together when we met, ended up turning my friends against me. So when I went to school, no one talked to me my senior year.
Why did they turn against you?
I don't know what it was. I mean, when you're high school, you just don't. I mean, I probably would have done the same thing.
And there was 29.
And it was 29.
Yes.
And we were all close, and I don't know why exactly it happened. I think that she probably was mad because I spent a lot of time with him and not much time with her. You know how we are as girls.
We are not.
And I don't hold any. I mean, it's just what it is.
Yeah.
I probably would have done the same thing.
So it's kind of lonely for you.
Yeah. So my mom was my best friend. She picked me up for lunch most days, or met me for lunch and talked me through it. And she got the principal to let me graduate early, so I did all the work and graduated my mid-semester, so December.
Right.
I finished all my work. And I think some of that, so I was the girl in school who was the abstinence girl. Like, I was like, you shouldn't have sex until you're married. Like, we shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
My parents I did a talk on abortion actually in, I think, 7th grade maybe. And my dad had a talk with me about, sex and the whole thing and why we wait and all that. And it just really made an impact on me. And I was like, I'm going to wait. And I didn't have like a good why. I had this wrong. And so I was kind of holding on to that. And when everything kind of fell apart and I didn't have friends and it was just George and I, and we hung out a lot and put ourselves in a lot of compromising positions that aren't necessarily conducive to waiting.
Right.
We just ended up having sex one day, and I lost my virginity and I got pregnant.
The first time.
Condom broke, if that's not too much information. But we did try, you tried to be safe, and it broke, and that's my oldest.
Yeah. And so you're how did that conversation go with your parents? Like,
okay, so when we when it all happened, I got super sad, and George was like, we should pray. This feels
after
off.
You had
right
had
after,
sex.
yeah.
Right after you had sex.
Yeah, and I was crying because I felt so bad that I hadn't stuck with what I said I was going to do, and I think I felt some guilt. I grew up in a denomination that maybe encouraged some of that, and just kind of held you to the rules. And anyway, so we went to church, but he didn't want to go to a denominational church, and I didn't really want, like, we were trying to find where we could both go. So we went to a non-denominational church in town and just asked for prayer, and then, waited until I missed my period. I took 5 pregnancy tests, actually. 4 were negative, because I didn't realize you had to wait until after, because I was only 18. I'm like, I can
so,
tell.
So, like, you thought you were, I could
just, well, my mom always said, so I have 1 of 5.
Right.
My grandmother has 9.
She's like, you're very
My mom's
fertile.
like, you're fertile. Like, you need to be careful.
Yeah.
You're fertile. And so as soon as that, I was like, oh my gosh, my mom said,
She was right.
And so I took 4, and they were negative, and I took the 5th, and sure enough, I was pregnant. And so to answer your question, I told George I couldn't tell my parents. I was like, I can't tell them. And he's like, they need to know, and I'll tell them for you. And so he actually typed up a little presentation on the computer. And
is he your age? Same age?
Yeah, he's a year older than me.
Okay, you're
yeah, yeah. And he was at the public school. I was at the private school. He went to the public school. He's actually from Chicago, and so he just moved into Kearney his sophomore year of high school. So at this time, he would have been a freshman in college, and he was living at a friend's house, and I was a senior. But I was out of school, but still in that senior semester. And so he typed it up, and we joked today because he gives presentations for a living, and he says this is his first one. We joke about it as a family.
That's
and
probably
everything.
his hardest one he's ever had. And after you do that presentation, all of them are just downhill, right? I mean, it's just so easy.
Maybe that's why he never gets nervous when he talks. Right?
He did the worst one.
right off the bat. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we went up to their bedroom, and he went into their territory and everything. It was really impressive thinking back on it, right? But he just told them. I looked at the floor the entire time. I just couldn't look up. And at the end, they were super calm. My parents are great parents. They love us just relentlessly. But they were obviously disappointed and sad. And my mom was crying. And they're like, well, we need to go figure it out at the doctor and all of that. So, it took about 2-3 weeks of some grieving. And then they got right on board. And I lived at home for a while. And we got married when actually he proposed in a trailer because he lived in a trailer during college, like a trailer home.
Yes.
That my dad had found for him, and I had been working all day. I was like 8 months pregnant, and he proposed that night when I got back from work.
Yeah.
And I was going over to visit him, and he proposed, and we got married when Javon was 7 months old.
Oh my goodness! And you were married 22 years, right?
22 years this year. Yeah.
This year will be 22 years.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
So what is that like? Obviously, was it more the fact that did any of the race part come into that play, or was it just more the fact
no.
Didn't.
No, my family raised me to be just love everybody.
Yeah.
I actually am writing our story, and I went back and interviewed my grandparents to find out, how did you feel about that time? And I come to find out they had friends in their lives that were different colors that I didn't ever see, but that had impacted them. And they're so just loving and accepting of everybody. Awesome. It did. So the race
was never an issue.
Not even a blip on the map. No, not for
That's
my family.
That's so awesome.
No.
And so here you are. You have a baby, and your husband's in school. Mm-hmm. And so how do y'all make things work?
It was hard. Yeah, it was hard. So I was in school too. So I went to the deal with my parents was if I graduated early, I had to go right into college. And so I went to college while I was pregnant. And then I actually walked this stage in my high school graduation pregnant. I danced my last dance recital pregnant. But you couldn't tell. I was young and 6 months pregnant, so you couldn't tell. And then he would work all day, and then he would go to class all day and work all night at the beginning. So we were both in class. We were both kind of doing like college students, and we just balanced the baby at night. My parents were super helpful
because y'all were in the same town with your family, so
yeah.
they could kind of help with the kids.
Yeah. The first 6 months I lived at home because we never lived together before we got married, and so I lived at home with my parents. So that helped because I was in and out of the house, and my mom was gracious enough to watch Javon, even though my youngest brother was only 11. So my mom was still raising kids at home. I had 3 of my brothers, I think, were still at home. So, yeah. But, it was hard. It was a challenge, just the timing and being so young and trying to figure out how to be married and raise a kid at the same time. And then... Because
you're young. Being young, you're growing up, but then you're growing up together, but then you also have a kid in
Yeah.
the mix. Like,
Yeah.
that's just so hard. And
Yeah.
you're 18.
I don't know how I did it. I'm surprised he's alive, actually.
And I had Will when I was 26, and I was like, I'm sorry, you're letting him go home with me? I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot let him go home with me.
Yeah. I think the advantage to being young is you're so naive
Yeah.
that you really don't even, I mean, I didn't even give it a second thought, honestly.
You're just like, got a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're so excited. We have a baby. This is so fun. You know?
And then you're like poor and you have a baby and you are
Yeah.
going to school and all the things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you had Ebony like right after that, right?
Yeah. So we got married when Javon was 7 months, and then I think like 2 months later we got pregnant again. Because it's fun, right? This is fun.
Oh my gosh.
I remember the conversation we said, oh, Javon's getting so, like, he doesn't look like a baby anymore. We should do this again. And that was intentional. Can you believe that?
Well, no, because your husband deals in finances. So you would think he'd be like, that was not the most financial.
Right. Well, at the time, he was studying real estate, I think, and he was working as a janitor. Yeah. At night. Yeah. At the public schools. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Were y'all living in that trailer?
No, he moved out of that. He actually lived in my parents' basement, or stayed in my parents' basement a lot, down there with my brothers, actually, for probably 3 months before Javon was born. So.
Be close.
Yeah, it wasn't a very cozy. It wasn't a nice.
Yeah.
It was kind of.
So you have 2 kids now, and when do you finish school? Like about that same time, or?
So once I was pregnant with Ebony, I was about 8 months pregnant. I was cleaning houses, and he was going to school. I was going to school and cleaning houses, and he was going to school still. And we decided he needs to get an actual job because this isn't working. Like financially, it's not going to work for us to both be full-time students. So he got a full-time job as a sales rep selling postage machines.
Postage,
yeah.
Yes.
You know, like the ones that stand, like you can send.
Yes.
You know, like Liberty has one where you can, it like prints the stamp on it. He would laugh at me for the way I described that. But anyway, he traveled all over Nebraska selling those, and then went to school at night. And so he would get up in the morning. He might have a 2-hour drive, go sell his machines, come home, and then go to class. And so I didn't really see him. That was probably the hardest time for us because I was alone. I was home alone
with 2 kids.
Yeah. And so that happened right before or right around when I had Ebony. And we decided that it was like I couldn't go to school and he go to school. One of us had to choose. And so I actually dropped out of school and he continued.
He finished school.
Yeah.
So
I was the cheerleader.
You were the cheerleader on the side.
Yeah.
And so how long did y'all do that for?
So his last, I want to say 2 years, because we had Andre then, while he was still.
I'm sorry, you had 3 children.
Yeah.
And
so when he was a senior in college, when he graduated college, I was 9. No, how old? I was.
Yeah, because they're really close.
Very pregnant with Andre. I remember the picture. I don't remember how pregnant, but yeah. And then I had Andre.
This is smart to have 3 kids.
Yeah. I'm telling you, when you're young, you just don't, and I'm not good at math anyway. And so
you're thinking, let's have 3 mouths to feed.
Yeah.
And let's have 3 in diapers.
Right?
I mean, you had to have had 2 in diapers.
Yeah. Well, I had 3 in diapers at one time.
3.
Yeah.
Because they're that close in age.
That close, and then, I mean, I wasn't good at potty training.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Okay, so he graduates from college, and you have 3 babies.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens?
So he got a job actually with Edward Jones,
Uh-huh.
which is a financial advising firm.
But that's kind of like, that business is like no commission, like no income.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so he
It was a great job, but mean, it's $0 when you get started.
So when he was a salesperson at the postage machine, he was making
Was it Pitney Bowes?
No, it was.
What was it? Because I remember that.
It was their competitor. Can you believe I can't remember?
It doesn't matter.
Anyway.
But I remember those.
Yeah. Pitney Bowes was his competitor. He made a lot. He made good money.
When he was in sales?
Yeah.
He was
made
good at
money. Yeah. And so, we were doing fine. but we didn't save because we were young.
Yeah. And you have 3 babies.
I had 3
How do you
babies.
save when you have 3 in diapers and
Right,
formula
yeah.
and you're not working?
Right?
And
Yeah. So he ended up getting a job with Edward Jones, and we thought, well, he was so good at selling postage machines. And one of my dad's friends is well known at Edward Jones, and he kind of helped him get on board with Edward Jones and encouraged him and all of that. And so you get to kind of pick where you want to go with Edward Jones. And we picked Colorado. We picked Littleton, actually.
Really?
Yeah. His office was in the tech center. I don't remember what part of town that is, but you know where it's at, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so when Andre was born, I want to say like that next week or 2 after he was born, George left for training, and I packed the apartment by myself.
And you moved to Colorado?
Yeah.
Knowing no one?
Knowing no one. I broke my mom's heart, which I still feel
Oh,
bad
I
about
bet,
today.
yeah. She's like, you're her best friend.
And I didn't even think about it. I mean, that's how.
Now you do. Now
right?
that Ebony's off at college,
I know.
you're like, wow, how could you leave?
I know. I'm like, why is
Such
this such
a
a big
matter.
deal? We'll talk on the phone. And,
Yeah, it's not a big
but
deal.
I don't even think it was me. I think it was the grandbabies that we.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
That's how my mother-in-law felt when we moved to Colorado. She was like,
Yeah.
what? You're leaving 12 hours away and you were 5 minutes from me.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
So you moved to Colorado and he starts his job. And I mean, how did that go?
So that was probably the job of Edward Jones for him was probably the hardest time of our life, I would say.
Why was that?
Well, you go into a job, so you get a little bit of security at the beginning. You get like a salary,
Like a draw kind of
at the
thing.
beginning. Yeah,
I'm surprised you even get that, but yeah.
Yeah, you get a little bit to kind of get you going. And he took over an existing office, and so that helped too.
Right.
But we only had one car because in Nebraska, when he worked for the postage machine company, they gave him a company car.
Okay.
And so we just had one car. When we moved out there, I mean, we didn't want to buy another car and get another car payment and all those things. So we lived in Littleton. Don't ask me why we did this. And he drove to the tech center every day. So I was at home with 3 littles and no car every single day. And it was like maddening. I mean, I love my kids and I loved being at home.
But they're little. I mean, they're like, what? How far apart are they? 2 years each? No.
Ebony and Joanne are 17 months apart, and then Andre's 22 months after Ebony.
So they're like, you have 3 kids under the age of 4, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. Joanne was like 3, 2, and 18 months. Or no, he wasn't even that. He was just a baby. So 3, 2, and 3 months maybe.
Just so little.
Yeah.
But like maddening. So what did you do with your time?
Anybody.
Like, you didn't know anyone. You didn't have a car. So what did you do all day?
By the time you get everyone, fed, and then nap time, and then we did live in a cute little apartment like on the foothills in Littleton, and so we would go outside and go to the little park, and I was just enamored with the mountains, so we'd just sit there, and the weather there is just amazing. So that part wasn't so bad. And then we moved. We somehow God gave us some favor, and we got a townhome that was bigger from a couple that was so sweet to rent it to us for a really good price. And I think for George it was hard because he was knocking on doors, and being a black man knocking on doors in an affluential neighborhoods poses its own challenges.
Yeah.
And when you meet him, you don't see that initially because it's just not how he carries himself. But it had its own challenges. And so shortly after we got there, like I want to say a year we were in that job, 9/11 happened. And then, no one was doing anything.
Right.
And everything dried up. About the same time our salary went away. And I mean, we were in dire straits. We did apply for food stamps and got them. My parents helped us a lot. I'd call my dad and ask for help, which was hard because it's hard to call back home and be like, we're trying to make it on our own.
We've got this. We got this.
Oh, we're not
3 kids under 3. We got this. No big deal.
Yeah. And my parents are so amazing. They just kind of let us, let us figure it out, but they would help us before we drown, And it was so sweet of them to do that. So yeah, we went on food stamps. And for me, it was just lonely. Like, it was the loneliest I think I've ever felt in my life, was because he was working and he was trying so hard to make it happen. And he was doing nighttime networking things.
Yeah.
You know, how Edward Jones is kind of that way. You get into the community, and that's how you meet your clientele and all of that. And I was at home, and we still were with one car. And so, actually, I think at that time we bought another car. It felt like an eternity. I don't even remember. Maybe a year. Yeah. Maybe.
And so, what turned around? How did it turn around?
So, as a financial advisor, he used to have wholesalers come into his office. And I used to say, you'd be so good at that. You should consider that. He's like, oh, I'd never do that.
What's a wholesaler? What do they do?
So it's kind of like a drug rep that goes into doctors' offices, and they'll sell the drug to the doctor. Okay. He sells wholesalers sell their financial product for the financial advisor to sell to the client.
Okay, yeah.
And so I was like, you'd be so great at this. And he's like, I'd never. Because Edward Jones, he's like, there's no plan B. You go in, and if you have plan B, then it won't work. You got to be all in.
Right. This is your plan for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And he was all in.
Because you're building your own business, right? Yeah. It's your own, yeah.
And about that time, I got a job at Ann Taylor, so I was working nights. So he would work all day, he would come home, and I would work at night. Sometimes till 10 or 11 or 12, and then we'd do it every single day. So I don't remember exactly what happened, but he ended up applying for an internal wholesaler position in Colorado that came open. So that's kind of like the wholesaler's partner, or not really assistant, but that's who sets their appointments and all of that. And so he got it. He went in and got the job, and it provided a salaried income where we were, set and stable. And we moved one more time closer to work, another apartment. And things seemed to be turning around. It got better because we were figuring out how to budget and all of that. And then he is one of the most relentless people in the best way I know. I mean, he really is amazing at how he goes at a task and a job, and he just gives everything that he has. And I think that he got recognized for that at work. And he applied for an external position, which is a promotion, and got it after asking for it over and over and over. And we moved to Michigan. And then everything kind of, evened out from there. It kind of just got easier, I guess, in a sense, because it felt like everything was working out because we got to buy a house, and, all of those things kind of lined up.
And what brought you to Texas?
So another promotion at work was, he went from being one kind of a wholesaler, which is like they called them fixed wholesalers. It's just the product, different product. He applied for a job that opened here. Actually, funny story. He applied in Kansas. This is funny how God always steps in when, like it says in the Bible that your steps are ordered, and even if you make a mistake, I think sometimes we pray and we're just like, oh, I hope I don't, like, God, am I supposed to take this step? Should I we weren't doing that. Like, I'll be completely candid. We love Jesus, but we were not asking him for direction. And we were just kind of following the steps. We were really chasing the dream of trying to make a lot of money. Right. I mean, if I'm being completely transparent. And so we went after the job in Kansas, which is the one that opened. We would have lived in Kansas City. He would have had the entire state of Kansas, which means he would have had to drive and cover that whole state. We knew it was a risk. Just on our marriage, it would be a risk because he'd be gone so much. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm with 3 kids, and I'm going back facing this kind of loneliness idea again. We took it. We took the job. He interviewed for it. He got it. We took it. And right around that exact same time, I think it was within the week or two, Texas opened. And someone called him, one of his bosses called him and said, do you want Texas? And he said yes. Funny enough, like before he did the Kansas job, Pastor Robert, who's a pastor at Gateway Church here, he visited our church in Michigan. And I leaned over to George and I thought, he's so funny. I was like, I want to go to his church someday. And we ended up getting relocated to this area. So as soon as we got the job here, we found Gateway. We kind of made a circle and bought a house within a decent drive to Gateway.
To Gateway. It was like based on you
Yeah.
decided to build your house or find your
Yeah.
house based on how close
Yeah.
it was to Gateway.
Yeah. Isn't that funny?
so,
Yeah.
so how old are the kids when y'all moved back to Texas?
Javon was in 4th grade. Evan's in 3rd grade, and Andre was in 1st grade.
They're little still when they get
Yeah,
home.
they were excited.
They were so happy.
Yeah.
So what do you think? So bringing y'all back here and that whole thing with, your being in the church and like all that kind of stuff. How did that kind of help your marriage or hurt your, like what kind of y'all gone through since you've been here back in Texas with, you kind of alluded to kind of chasing money, and so that's kind of changed, the chasing the money and kind of how did that kind of...
So in Colorado, you go from having nothing and all you can think about is having something, right?
Right.
Like I just want to not eat on the dollar menu,
right?
Yes. Like we'd go to church and after church we would eat on the dollar menu at Wendy's. But our church in Colorado was, you've heard of prosperity gospel preaching. It was like it was that on steroids.
Yeah.
It was very much a lot of manipulation and stuff like that. But we still learned, and God still honored our sowing and our giving. We learned to tithe there, which is a really big deal for us. And I think that honestly, when we learned to tithe, it started to kind of pull that root of chasing money out, because it makes us, give back what doesn't belong to us, and it kind of just keeps you in perspective. Like this isn't mine to begin with,
right?
So when we got here, we got the dream house, the big. Big for me anyway, big dream house and everything we wanted, and the income was taking off, and I think that it's just been a process. I can't think of like a defining moment, but you do get it, and we've had many conversations where we've said, we were just as happy with nothing, as we have been with a lot. I don't know, I feel like I'm gonna cry. That's so funny. But we really do like money really doesn't buy you happiness. It just really doesn't. And so we have just grown closer to the Lord. I think a lot of it has been Gateway teaching, honestly, because he teaches a lot about, the blessed life and tithing and giving and all of those things. And the closer you grow with the Lord, the less money just really matters. It's just, you can see it's a tool for the kingdom to advance, and maybe the final straw would be selling my house.
We talked about that earlier. So how did that come about, selling the house?
So the Lord talks to me a lot, and about 2014, I felt a prompting that we were supposed to sell. And I felt like the Lord asked me, would you give this house up? And this sounds ridiculous because it's just a house, right? First world problems, but I was bawling. I was like, of course, I'd give you anything, whatever you ask. And this is after years of, spending time with him and cultivating a relationship with him and all of these things. He didn't just do it right off the bat. Right. Give me everything you have. It was a very gentle,
Let me
sweet.
Just make you miserable.
Yeah.
Right now.
I'm going to punish you. It wasn't really that. It was just kind of like, I've got bigger things for you. Would you be willing to give this up and trust me? And, I was like, yeah. So for me, I'm a jump. Like, show me the cliff. Right? Let's go. And for George, he processes differently. And so it was probably a year later that we went to lunch together, and George and I talked, and I was like, we were actually on a date. And I said, I feel like we're supposed to sell the house. And he's like, I kind of been feeling that too. And I said, let's pray. Let's separate for 10 days and pray about it. And then we'll come back together and see if the Lord told us the same thing. That's kind of how we figure out if we're going the right direction. Because now we're asking for direction.
Right, before you're just going.
Before he was just gracious to just be like, okay, you guys, come over here. And we prayed about it, and we both heard the same thing. And so we knew we needed to sell. It took a year to sell.
So in that time when it took a year to sell, are you like, okay, Lord, you told us to sell it, but you're not selling it.
Yeah. It was a lot of grieving, like, I'm cleaning the house. I'm like, I'm going to miss this house so much. And the stager comes in and like, what, cleans out everything. And you're like offended because she took all your stuff out, It was such a, like, I needed the year, like to really, it was really a cleaning out of me, really.
Don't you think that those are such painful, I mean, I think when you see that in yourself, it's so ugly. You're like, how did I get this ugly? I mean, because I definitely struggle with because we talked about that too, because we recently downsized and I saw I continue to see an ugly side of myself. Even though there wasn't a reason, it was just being obedient. And so sometimes being obedient is not easy.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the Lord it's just kind of, and I go back to Jonah and I go back to like, I thought about him this week and I was like, he finally did what the Lord told him to do, but then he had such a bad attitude till he died.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
and
so
I was
true.
like, okay, Lord, I could be Jonah and I obey you, but I don't want to be bitter like he was at the end.
Yeah, that's
because,
so good.
I mean, and that to me, I was like, I don't want to be that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be bitter. Like, just, okay, fine, Lord, I'll obey you. I'll do what you say.
Yeah.
And then just be bitter.
Yeah.
Like, because there could have been other things the Lord could have used Jonah through even more, but he was so bitter.
Yeah.
And, I've been thinking about that when, when God tells you to be obedient, it's not always easy.
No.
It's
rarely.
And I'm sure he's laughing at you when you're like, vacuuming, like, I'm just going to miss this house. Or when I, when I kind of do the same kind of thing and I'm like, oh, but I also don't want to miss out on, and hopefully he knows our hearts. Like, he knows that we love him more than the house, but the process is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The year we sold, I get a word for the year every January. Just kind of like, where are you going? Or what do you want me to focus on or stand on for this year? And it was a covenant year, and it was something about the rainbow with Noah was the verse. The day we sold the house, the day we signed the contract on the house, there was a rainbow outside my kitchen window. And it was just kind of like, it brought it all around to, okay, I know that I've been obedient and he's promised me good things. And so it was easier to let go.
Yeah.
And I loved we loved the house well, and we transitioned it to someone, and I left her a letter and told her, I love this house, We gave her flowers, and we were just like, we wanted to transition it well and give it almost like a gift, which I know sounds funny, probably sounds funny to some people, but I do think there's something in cultivating property and a space, for the Lord. And I hope that they're blessed by that house like we were. Yeah.
So cool.
Cried the day we moved. I saw everyone left, and I was the last one out of the driveway, and I just sat there and I just bawled. And then I let it go.
Yeah.
A year and a half.
A year and a half later. It really helped. I mean, I love that because I love that transparency because again, when you're obedient, it's not easy. And like going through, there is a mourning period.
Yeah.
And, I wish that our mourning periods were less than a year and a half or, that the Lord, but like you said today, you're like, I'm not attached to anything anymore.
No.
And the Lord had to prune me, and pruning is so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so I think about that, and that would encourage me today when you said that, because I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
What I'm doing. Like, I don't like that. I don't like this because I know, I'm being obedient and I don't like that I'm being pouting,
I felt the same way.
Yeah.
I was just like, ugh. And then I was like, oh, I was driving because, you have to drive through Roanoke, which is great in its own right, but it's not like the pretty little clock tower I used to drive past in Trophy Club. And I just felt this like, ugh. And the Lord was like, did you realize I pulled your roots up? Like you were rooted in identity in that house. And I pulled it up. But what I love about how he prunes is he prunes gently. He doesn't come in with like a, what do you call those?
Machete?
Yeah. He's not, he like gently lifts up the twig. He gently cuts, and you're always better for it. Always.
For sure.
Yeah. And I'd do it over again.
You would do it over again?
Yeah.
I'm so excited. So now what are you doing? So you're writing a book.
Attempting.
Of your story.
I'm attempting.
You're attempting to write a book.
Yeah.
Because you're empty nesting now. The kids are off at school.
Yeah. Ebony lives at home.
Ebony's at home.
Yeah, but the other two are off right now. Yeah.
And so And there's been, disappointment with the boys and their injuries and stuff like that.
It's always a challenge.
Yeah.
With, college sports. And so they go thinking everything's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And there's challenges there too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so at the end, I usually ask a couple questions.
Okay.
So one is, what's something fun you're into right now?
Okay, this is going to sound silly, but empty nesting.
Yes.
We do couch time.
What is that?
Okay, so
I remember couch time when they were little.
Yeah.
Because Michelle, I told Michelle and my sister-in-law, we're mutual friends.
Yeah.
We did Baby Wise, and they had couch time where we had to come, like, when you come home, you go and sit on the couch. Did you know that was a thing? So it was like this thing in parenting, which I'm sure my kids called, Baby Wise or Growing Kids God's Way, and I'm sure my kids are going to be in therapy over it, but it's just like, because it's very rigid. But one of the things they did talk about was that when your spouse came home, that you were to sit on the couch and the kids can't bother you, but you have that time that you talk, and then you pay attention to the kids. But it signifies to the kids that your marriage is number one, and they're important, but they can't be more important than your marriage.
Oh, I love that.
So is that what you do? No, you
well,
can't do that.
So George actually got into making coffee.
Okay,
and so he makes the best cappuccinos, like better than coffee shop. They're so good. And he makes one every morning. And so that's kind of our routine. If he doesn't have to leave for work super early, he makes a coffee and we sit on the couch and we watch Good Morning America, which sounds crazy, but when you're a mom, like, we never did that.
No.
And when they move out, you kind of start to wonder, like, what is my life going to look like without kids? Like, what are we going to do? Right. And it's just been a natural progression. And, honestly, just spending time with him right now is probably my most fun thing, because it's like we're young again. We got married we never had that time.
Kids. Like you had, and I think for Jeffrey and I, it's going to be somewhat similar, because Will was, like, I got pregnant 9 months after we were married. Yeah. And then Will was born, obviously 9 months. So I had known Jeffrey for a total of 2.5 years when we had Will. Wow. So, and he traveled every Monday and came home every Thursday night.
Oh, wow.
From the time I met him until Will was 3 months old. So,
So you kind of knew him.
I kind of knew him. I was like, I'm having a baby with a guy I don't really know that well. This is a little weird. But, so I kind of, thinking about that, like, this is kind of our newlywed time, right? Because I felt like I kind of got robbed. And you probably felt like that too. Yeah. Because I was like, usually when you're newlyweds, you come home, you cook dinner together, you sit on the couch, you do those things. And, like, we didn't do that. By the time he was actually home, we had a 3-month-old, so like, we didn't have that time just to enjoy, and so.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So that's kind of your time now.
It is. That's what I love right now, just hanging together. Yeah.
Isn't that sweet of the Lord to give you that too, that time?
Yes.
Because, you probably did mourn that you didn't have that, when you were first married. Yeah. So that's cool. Yeah. What are you reading?
2 books right now. One's called Unpunishable by Danny Silk.
Okay.
And it's about kind of the punishment versus discipline paradigm that we believe that God is. A lot of people believe God is a punisher when he's actually a disciplinarian. Discipline actually means training. And so he talks about how God, when we mess up, how he pulls us closer and he trains us through it. And kind of how to do that in your own relationships, in your own life, with your kids or other people. Like, if someone's messing up, it's easiest for us to think like God's against them. But like in Job, it says God despises no one. And so it's kind of that process of how do you interact with someone and believe that God wants the best for them all of the time, no matter what they're doing.
Right. That's awesome.
It's a super cool book.
Okay. After and what was it called?
Unpunishable.
Unpunishable. Okay.
And then I always have a fiction because they're more fun to read. A good friend of mine, Kimberly Croce.
Yes.
She's gave me the book A Girl Behind the Red Rope by Ted Decker.
Okay.
I just started it. It's really good.
The Girl Behind the Red Rope.
Yeah.
Okay. That's so good. Okay. What is your favorite parenting advice?
Okay, so you gave me this question.
I know.
And I've mulled over it because I'm in a space where when you have adult kids, as you may have experienced, you get to kind of see your gaps and you kind of look backwards and go, oh gosh.
Yeah. My mom still does that.
Really?
Yes. And it drives me crazy because she's like, well, you're that way because I didn't do blah, blah, blah. And I was like, Mom.
What's wrong with me?
She's like, well, I just should have made you clean your room more or something. I don't know. Like, she'll say that like all the time. Like, she's constantly like, this like wave of guilt, parenting. And I'm like, Mom, like, stop doing that.
I'm
like,
amazing.
Because then I'll see that I do that too. And I'm like, stop doing that,
Yeah.
So is that what you've been doing?
Not so much. I love the way, if I can, this isn't really a pat on my back because they turned out in spite of me, but they turned out like such amazing human beings. Like I love to be around them. So they're just cool people.
Yeah.
But you can see as we talk about things that happened or stuff like that, I was like, oh wow, I did that. I did do that. Yeah. Sorry. Like stuff like that, I thought I was one of those people that always wanted to be a mom. And so I thought I was great at it. Like I was like, I'm a good mom. But I think you look back in retrospect and think, I could have done a lot of things better. I could have done things better for them. But they turned out great anyway. But best parenting advice, I would say, get a word from the Lord about who they are.
So what does that mean?
So for me, God exists, outside of space and time, right? So he knows who they are, where they're going to go, what they're going to do, who they're going to be. For me, I just asked for a scripture and personality traits that he saw in them. I hear the Lord clearly. Some people can feel or sense, or you can also get it out of scripture. It's also in scripture too. But he gave me pictures of who they are. And this was in middle school, and I wrote it down. I still have it today. I still stand on it today. And then from there, pursue their heart at all costs. Behavior isn't a big deal. It'll change if you pursue their heart. And so that looks like knowing their love language and loving them well. When their behavior gets out of hand, deal with your own emotions about it and then come to them in love. I'm not disappointed. I love you no matter what. Let's talk it out,
And as adult children, that's probably harder too, right? Because you don't really have, you don't have the, people always say, oh, your kids are so great. I'm like, if you say that when they're 30, then I will take it. Yeah. But it's still at 30, I'll probably say it was by God's grace. It was nothing I did.
Yeah.
Because when you look back on that, that's so true. Last night we went and saw Beth Moore, and she is a family friend. Anyway, when they were little, when Will was little, he was kind of bad, and he was out of control. Like I couldn't take him anywhere. Like I'd go to Chick-fil-A, and he'd beat up the other kids, and everyone, we'd have play group, and he would bite. I mean, like it just was so bad. And and so I couldn't take him anywhere, and people would look at me like, "Can you not get control of your kid?" And I would read every parenting book. I'd ask every question. I would do all this stuff, and it would not work. And so, I'll never forget sitting on the floor, holding the door back, because we had the child locks, but we put him in his room so that he couldn't get out for his nap. But he was still figured it out. So I'm going like this, holding the back of the door, on the floor, pregnant with Jake, crying, going, what am I doing? Having another child. I'm an idiot, you know?
Yeah.
And so he was crazy. And so my mom's like, well, we just call him Strong Will. And, and Beth said, do not speak that over him. He's God's will.
That's so good.
And so we were like, yeah, he is God's will. Yeah. And so when we started speaking that over him instead of strong will, his whole countenance changed, and he's changed. And he is if I had to describe him now, his personality is not strong-willed. Yeah. It's God's will. That's so everything he does is for the Lord. Before, he was really strong-willed. It was if you look up strong-will in the dictionary, there's Will's picture. that's how I viewed him. But now that's not how I view him. And what you say over them really matters, Yeah. And so that's so cool that you had kind of those words over your kids and their personality, and that God showed you kind of their personality so that you could kind of parent them that way. Yeah. Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah. Okay. So, favorite beverage?
In general?
In general, can be whatever.
Well, my husband's coffee.
Your husband's coffee. Yeah. Okay, that's a good one. And then, favorite travel destination?
The Palmia at Cabo San Lucas.
The one and only?
The one and only.
Oh, that's so fun.
There's no.
Well, have you been to the resort at Pedregal?
Yeah, we've well just for dinner, but
okay, you need to stay there too.
Yeah,
and you'll see the difference. They're both amazing.
Yeah, they took us on a tour actually.
That was awesome.
Through the one that was like right up on the beach.
They're different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, those are so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are super fun. Love those places. I'll go with you anytime you want to go.
I love
Cabo. And Kara has not been to Cabo.
What?
Yeah, so
we need to go.
We need to take a trip. Like,
there's nowhere like it. The people there are so
nice.
amazing.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, we're booking that. Favorite healthy snack or meal?
Chia seed pudding.
Chia seed pudding.
Weird?
I've never had that.
It's so good. So I'm mostly low carb.
Okay.
I give myself 2 carb days a week, and then otherwise I'm really low carb. So chia seed pudding it's like coconut milk, chia seeds, and stevia, a little bit of salt, and it just like gels up in the refrigerator overnight. And do you like rice pudding or tapioca?
No.
It has the same texture as tapioca. Yeah. And then I put a big dollop of peanut butter on top and some raspberries.
That's like your favorite.
It's so good.
And chia seeds has like a lot of protein in it. Is that what it's good for?
It has protein. It's high in fiber. I think it has some antioxidants.
In it it's in Shakeology. Shakeology has chia seeds, so I know a little bit about, but not a lot. Okay, and last, what's your favorite workout?
Anything that involves strength. I'm still a Pilates instructor at the Pilates bar. Yeah. And I love to strength train, and I do Pilates, 2 to 3 times a week because I'm teaching. So, I have to do it. And it really does
Is it
work.
Pilates with the machine? Is that what
it's the reformer?
Okay.
Yeah, reformer only. Pilates bar is a little different because they don't do anything off the reformer.
Oh, so everything
it's all
is
reformer.
on.
Yeah. Okay. And it's a fast-paced Pilates. It's very hard.
Yeah. I just started bar, and I think bar is so hard. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I've been meaning to try your class.
You should come. It's so fun.
I can't wait to try it. So.
It's super fun.
Thank you for coming and sharing your story. And it's going to inspire so many people.
Thanks
so thank you.
Me.
Sweet.
Appreciate it.